He's a lawyer turned celebrity news mogul. Harvey Levin founded TMZ, which was underestimated by major media companies as just another celebrity gossip website. But TMZ has gained respect as it's broken news on most of the major celebrity stories and scandals, stories that are now picked up by mainstream news operations. I sat down with Levin to find out how he built TMZ and how, in his opinion, it compares with traditional media outlets. You know, I went back and I looked at a list of the major stories that you broke, and I want to share a couple of those. First of all, the Tiger Woods scandal, his divorce settlement. You broke the death of Michael Jackson, the death of Whitney Houston, Mel Gibson's DUI, Governor Schwarzenegger scandal, the list goes on. When you were doing legal analysis on TV, did you have a vision for TMZ?
Well, I mean, look, this has been an evolution, and you know, at the time I was an investigative reporter for the NBC and CBS affiliates in LA in the 80s and 90s. But at the time, there was no developed internet, so it really wasn't there to think about. But when I started a show called Celebrity Justice in 2002, we had bad time periods in a lot of markets.
Welcome back to What You Don't Know, a CJ special.
And so what we ended up doing is we would break the story on CNN or MSNBC or whatnot, or Fox, and then by the time it got on our show, which a lot of times was very late night, it was old news. And it was frustrating because we were breaking a lot of stories then, but we weren't monetizing it. What started to look appealing was that if you could create a news operation that wasn't constrained by time periods, publishing cycles, that when you get it right, you get it up, you would have a huge advantage. And if you were good and if you were thorough and accurate, you could win.
And the internet was really the answer for that.
It made sense because there was no news operation online at the time we launched. There was really no credible news operation. And so the theory was, if we can create a news operation where people could trust us, rely on us, and then brand us by putting our stories up and crediting us and putting our people up, that we could become successful.
And now, so you're the producer of the show, you're the founder of this entity, but you won't talk about your deal.
No.
You own part of the show.
I'm not saying what I have. I'm not going to talk about my deal.
But really, obviously, you had some vision of being an entrepreneur and not just talent.
Yeah, I mean, look, I decided that years before TMZ started because I was producing other shows. I had a production company, so I had done news for a long time, and then decided I wanted to get into producing, and I produced People's Court for a couple of years.
So, who's at fault here?
And then came back to LA when we did that show in New York, and then I came back to LA and wanted to start producing shows.
Oh, she hit you in the parking lot. It's looking like it's more likely than not.
And when you look at the nature of a lot of the stories that you were covering on Celebrity Justice and the O.J. Simpson trial, were those stories considered legitimate news stories back then?
Oh, of course. I mean, when you think of O.J. Simpson, everybody, not only everybody covered it, it was almost wall-to-wall coverage. At the time, I was with CBS.
Right.
The distinction between, quote, traditional news and us, if you will, that has long since passed. There are a lot of news operations that still pretend that, we don't do that stuff. You know what the reality is? The reality is that Good Morning America is overtaking the Today Show because they're doing a lot of the stories that we cover. And the Today Show has done the same thing. It's just Good Morning America is more out there with it. But it's the kind of stuff that resonates with people now.
Do you consider yourself a media organization, a news organization?
We are a news organization.
Okay.
We absolutely are a news operation.
Do you pay for stories?
Well, I will say this, that we pay for videos, we pay for photos just like everybody else. But we will never pay for an interview or anything like that. I mean, because then what happens is, see, a video, if you pay for a video, and everybody does, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we have a couple of dozen cameramen out there, but if we miss a shot and somebody else gets it, and they come to us and say, hey, you want to buy this video? Absolutely.
What about for sources?
What we might do occasionally is pay a tip fee, but we have to verify all of our stories independently. If somebody says, look, we found out something is going on in another state, and we're not going to tell you where, but we're a freelance journalist and we want a fee for what we're doing, I would do that, but we would never publish it or post it.
So isn't that a distinction between you and the tradition?
No.
I'm not paying tip fees, I'll tell you that much.
But what's wrong with it? Well, let's talk about it. What's wrong with it?
Well, if you're a traditional news organization.
But what's wrong with it? See, they do it. Listen, the traditional news operations pay for interviews. They say, no, we didn't pay for an interview. We're paying $100,000 for their high school graduation picture. They're really paying for an interview. They're just hiding it. It's almost money laundering. But we're not going to pay for interviews. We just won't do it, because then the credibility of the person you're talking to is compromised, because you don't know whether they're telling you things to justify a fee. A video is really simple. If it's a video, it's objective. If I pay somebody a tip fee and they're saying, look, I'll tell you about where a story happened, there's no problem with that, because the bottom line is I'm not going to post that story unless I independently can say that happened.
Right.
If somebody says to me, look, there was a lawsuit filed somewhere and it's really interesting and here's what it is, but I'm not going to tell you where it is unless you give me $50. If I give that person $50, I have to find the lawsuit.
Okay, so for the sake of full disclosure, you do, but it doesn't sound like you think that gives you the advantage.
Yeah, the mistake you would make is to think that's the way we run the business, because what we have here, we have a bunch of really talented,
Tell me about that.
Good reporters who have lots and lots of sources.
We got Richard Simmons on Saturday. It was his birthday. Tons of people came out. He gives everyone a kiss, and they're all saying happy birthday to him.
Look, I've been in LA for 30 plus years, working professionally and in the media. And I have a lot of sources in this town, and they're people that I've, created relationships with based on trust, and that's what this whole thing is about. It's based on trust. That's what a lot of the people here, everybody here, has established their foundation on, and that is that you meet people, you talk with people, and get them to trust you. And we have a lot of sources. So, for example, when we broke the Michael Jackson case, that was based on,
tell me about that day.
Well, we got a couple of tips on our tip line, and we started thinking something is going on. And now remember, Michael Jackson went to the hospital a lot, but we made a phone call and established that he had gone into full cardiac arrest. That changed everything. So we just started calling people that we knew and pieced this thing together, and then we confirmed it, cross-confirmed it, triple-confirmed it, and when we were 100% sure, we made more calls, and then we posted the story.
Was that a turning point for TMZ in terms of the way it's viewed by the public?
I don't think so. I mean, when you look back, I think it got a lot of attention. But when you look at the evolution of TMZ, we, from the very first day, started posting stories that people were citing us on. Mel Gibson, the DUI happened long before Michael Jackson's death, years before, and that was a big turning point for us. But also, Michael Richards and hundreds of other stories. I think that the way you build a business is not based on an individual story. It's over time. It's building blocks. That even if you get a really big story, what's next?
The account of 3, what TMZ Live will be back in flash. $2.99.
Are you criticized by the people in mainstream outlets as not being legitimate?
Listen, if they didn't trust our information, they wouldn't put it on the air.
But there's a dilemma for many of them.
They're putting it on the air with no dilemma. When we put it up, all I know is
Do you
that
think a lot of that is confirmed independently?
No, absolutely not. What happened?
Because they can't.
They can't. They can't. I mean, they're not built to know look, if you just kind of breeze in and out in this world, you're not going to have the sources. They're not going to talk to you. I mean, this is something that we had to carefully craft, and that's something that we learned early on. That we would break a story, and then early on, and CNN would call up and say, well, who are your sources? And we'd say, we're not going to tell you.
They would call you and ask you who your sources are? Another news article?
First story, who are your sources? And I said, I'm not going to tell you who our sources are. And they said, well, we're not going to run the story. You're an online news organization. And I said, well, okay, don't run the story. And then what happened was, 2 days later, they realized we were right. So we broke another story. They called up again, and they said, who are your sources? Same conversation. Over time, and it only took a little bit of time, they realized, look, they've got a track record, and it's just like anything else. If they see that you're consistently right, because accuracy is king, if they see that your batting average is really, really good, over time, they start saying, okay, they reported it, it must be right.
Today on TMZ.
Big news. Beyonce has a new hairstyle.
What did the show do for the internet product?
I think the show was an extension of it. It's not duplicative because, we don't pretend on the TV show to do news. It's not. The show is a humorous take on Hollywood. So the website is really the place where we break stories. The show is a humorous take on Hollywood.
Coming up.
Jeff Goldblum with his 29-year-old girlfriend. I don't know how he does it.
We realized very early on that if we tried to pretend we were breaking news on the TV show, that you could look right past it. There are TV shows where they, say, this just into the blank blank newsroom, and it's at 7 o'clock at night, and the story was online at 12 noon.
Right.
And people are too sophisticated. They know that.
Do you see more opportunities to grow the brand?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've done all sorts of things already. I mean, we have a TMZ.
What's the next step?
Oh, we've done a TMZ Hollywood tour, which I love. I love the business of the Hollywood tour, and we're growing that. We're going to grow it into a charter business now. We're going to take it into other states. We're also, we're heavy into sports. We do a lot of stuff in sports, and that's something we have our eye on.
Well, you're certainly breaking a lot of stories about sports personalities.
We do, and we get a lot of video with sports figures. We care about sports. Half of our audience is male, both online and on TV.
Does that surprise you?
It's it's surprising in celebrity news. Absolutely.
You wouldn't say that about National Enquirer or some of the other.
85%, 90% female, and we are almost evenly divided.
What distinguishes you?
Because I think a lot of other places have given up on men, that they assume that it's a women's field. And I think what we've done is, if you look at the site and the way we've balanced the site out at any given moment, that there's something for men, there's something for women, and there's a lot for both. But we understand that when you're a TV show and you start going into Julianne Hough's closet to look at her shoes, you've lost the guys. And we kind of know how we're programming, and we program for both.
And the fact that you're so prominent on the internet, does that help you with the young generations?
The problem with a lot of news organizations is you have a lot of people in the 50s and 60s who are making decisions in a closed room.
They don't know the culture.
They don't know the culture. And I'm not going to pretend. I mean, I have so been educated by people in this room every day, and continue to be, and they make fun of me because I'm just not them. But I know how important they are, and that's one of the reasons why this is a very egalitarian room. And that when you look at our morning meeting, and it's something we've done long before the TV show, the morning meeting is not just the senior people and the staff, it's everybody. Because you know what? A PA who heard something about a friend who told him about something that happened on a set is just as valuable as a senior producer. He got a story. And this is a city where everybody's connected in some way.
That's Drake leaving a store in LA yesterday.
Who is this? TMZ?
TMZ, yeah. How are you?
Wait a minute, she put Mike on the spot that way?
Where do you see yourself as a TV mogul in 5 years in terms of other things that you could be doing?
I don't look at it
Are
that
you
way.
done?
No, look, I'm not done.
I'm just saying.
I'm not done.
Okay then, where are you going with
We have
it?
a lot of ideas, and I don't look at this as a master plan to do something. I honestly don't have a 5-year plan, but I do know that it has to evolve. That's one thing I do know, that you can't run something like this or any media organization where you say, oh, it's successful now, let's just maintain it. People who try and just maintain whatever success they have will ultimately fail. You have to grow and evolve because that's what the audience wants, and that's what you need to do to stay vibrant.
The people you cover, Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton, multi-million-dollar business. You cover them.
We created them.
You created them. I'll give you credit for that.
Or you can blame us.
And people feel that they're not talented. It's this kind of new phenomenon of celebrity. So how do you decide that you're going to create one of these people?
There was early on in TMZ, there was a place called Hyde. It still exists, near our offices actually. And Paris Hilton was in a feud with her former best friend, Tara Reid. And she had a new best friend. Her name was Kim Kardashian. We didn't know that. But one day, Paris and Kim sauntered into Hyde, and Tara Reid was behind the velvet rope and couldn't get in. And they gave her a look like, "You are old news, lady," and look at my new best friend. And one of my guys in the office, the guy who runs Post, said, "Who is that?" And I said, "I don't know." And they said, and this guy's 25 years old at the time, "You have to put this up on the website. I'm telling you, you have to put this up on the website. People want to see this woman."
Did you believe him?
Well, that's one of the reasons I have young people around me. Because he said, I mean, they were so vehement about this. And we put Kim up, and people were interested. And then we put her up again, and we put her up again, and we put her up again, and people were interested.
What do they do? What is their job?
Their job is to market them. That's their job. And they market them well.
And so have you. You branded yourself all the way from when you were covering law in the 80s all the way to now and into the future. Thank you so much,
It's my
Harvey
pleasure.
Levin. And with Harvey Levin, I'm Lee Hawkins. We'll see you next time.